welcome to our webinar. I'm Luca Pasquesi, a product manager here at Arena, and I'm joined today by Mark Hepburn, VP of Products and Services at Perception Software, an Altium company. Today we'll be discussing the business value of integrated systems and the features of the EDAConnect integration between Arena and Altium. You'll also see a demonstration of the integration later on. With that, I'll hand it over to Mark, who will be taking us through these slides today.
Thank you, Luca, and welcome everybody to our webinar. Hope that you find this informative. And what we're going to cover today is we're going to start out with what's the current problem that we see today between PLM and EDA integration. So the current problem is one around collaboration and the need that PLM information is truly needed in the context of design as we're trying to make new and innovative products. But also, the enterprise needs access to the current state of that design to drive downstream processes such as manufacturing and procurement. And what we need to do is try to realize a closed-loop collaboration. And the future and the value of this is a much more integrated approach. But let's not forget what we're designing as innovators in the high-tech marketplace today. We're designing complete products, and our products today need to come to market faster and have many more facets involved to deliver that product on that timeline. So we are all part of a process starting from the system design. We have to integrate the software capturing the functionality. We have to define the mechanical aspects of the design, right? We all know how a design looks and feels is just as important as the software and electrical characteristics, and they have to come together. I have to get my printed circuit board and my circuit design into that packaging, and I ultimately have to get this all into manufacturing. But as we're bringing many more products today, especially in the world of IoT, we also have to include in an iterative fashion application software and integration into cloud services as well. So this all requires a full systems view, integration of multiple different aspects of the different domains, such as mechanical, electrical, and software. And all of these pieces must come together in a collaborative environment so that we can bring together our product in a timely fashion. So what does this bring to us? This brings some common engineering challenges we need to deal with. Engineering needs access to the information as they're trying to innovate and design that product. So how do I get this information? Well, there's information buried inside my PLM environments, and they need to get that data into the hands of the engineers so they can use that data. How can I easily find information? And specifically to ECAD, it's largely around component information. And how do I get that component information such that I can choose parts that can be easily procured, won't be at high risk, or meet my cost constraints? How can engineering teams then, once they capture that new innovative design, can they inform the enterprise of all this other data? And how can they make that available to PLM and do this in a non-disruptive way? You know, I don't need to leave my EDA's environment to actually collaborate this information. So why is this difficult? Well, at the end of the day, there's two different tool sets, if you will, and both are actually very good in their individual domains. So the EDA tools, specifically for PCB design, ECAD, addresses the engineering design problems quite well, and those environments are very well tuned to the design engineer's needs. So much is so on the PLM side as well. The PLM environments are very robust, very comprehensive in what they can do in carrying a product through the entire design, change management, and manufacturing process. However, where we fall down today as an industry is ECAD is only loosely connected to the enterprise. This makes it very difficult for the ECAD engineers to actually see the value of PLM. So what we're trying to do here is kind of remove this string telephone connection between my EDA environment and my PLM environment and turn this into a much more integrated, collaborative, and closed-loop solution. So what are some of the challenges of what is in the system today? Well, fundamentally, data is split between two disconnected systems, and this merges today in the CAD library. So today, the CAD library traditionally holds the physical, logical, 3D simulation models, and technical attribution, all of which is required to drive the ECAD environment. However, in order to bring a full product to life, we have to also take into account cost, availability, risk, materials declarations, much of which is stored in another system, PLM. Outside of an integration, it's the engineer that's largely responsible for integrating this information. Some larger companies might actually have the ability to have large library groups, but in many innovative companies today, it's the design engineer that has to actually integrate this information at the point of design, making it much harder to actually make proper component selections as they're trying to create that new design. So how do we address this? Well, using EDAConnect and our LiveSync technology, we actually make a connection to Arena PLM. This connection works in the background and seamlessly brings data from Arena PLM and updates the existing Altium Designer library, whether it's an Altium Designer DB lib or an Altium Vault managed library. We can update all of the PLM characteristics within the Altium Design library. This runs as a background service. Engineers don't know that it's operating, and at the end of the day, the information is kept up to date and frequent within the CAD environment. So there's very little to no change of the existing engineering process. In fact, as an engineer, I choose my parts exactly as I do today. I just see more relevant information that has been populated from PLM now in my CAD library. And this eliminates that problem of me as a design engineer trying to integrate that data together. So once I've made an appropriate component selection and I've innovated and created my new design, at some point I need to get this design data back into PLM so that I can inform the enterprise of different downstream processes such as purchasing, procurement, even BOM validation. How do I do this today? Well, outside of an integration, today this is largely a manual process. So I'm going to start in my Altium Designer environment, configure my output jobs, which Altium does a very nice job at producing all of the relevant outputs I need to get into manufacturing. But this comes out as a set of different files, which will include PDFs and viewables and possibly the native design files, the output manufacturing files, and also a bill of materials as an Excel export. I very likely have to package these into various formats, zip them up, put them into different folders, possibly format and map that bill of materials, and then get it into Arena somehow. Now there's kind of two different ways this happens today that we see. In some cases, the engineers are responsible just to mail that information to somebody in dock control, who ultimately will manually enter it into Arena. Or in many cases, the engineer is responsible for doing this themselves by logging into Arena and uploading this, mapping the bill of materials, and processing this into the Arena environment. Although the tools here are quite good to work with, it does require that the engineer steps out of the process of designing and steps into the world of PLM to enter this information. And as it's a manual process, we're spending too much time doing this. We're spending effort of expensive engineering time doing data entry. And we also have higher risk of mistyped information and errors in our data. So this is the current process we see today, and we can actually do quite a bit better. So what we can do is automate this process with EDAConnect for Altium. What this allows us to do is codify the entire process into a sequence of events launched from within the Altium Designer environment. So the engineer does not have to step out of Altium Designer to actually push information into Arena. The result of this is it's easier for the engineer. The enterprise gets this data much sooner and with far less errors. And engineers can execute this process much more frequently, and they're not disrupted from the act of the actual design effort. And we do this by linking these two environments together and making it such that the engineer can do this all from within Altium Designer. So let's talk a little bit more about how that works. So what EDAConnect does is establishes a simple collaborative workflow. As we had mentioned before, early on, we have to integrate multiple designs into a closed-loop collaborative process. And by making this wizard available, an engineer can simply, from Altium Designer, click Check in Design from a menu right on that design. We already know everything there is to know about that design. We know what project it's in. We know what output deliverables need to be moved across. We know already how to format the BOM. We can get all of that information on behalf of the engineer, carry that engineer through a simple sequence of 2-3 steps to ask some additional questions that's required of the enterprise, and then release that bill of materials and check in all of those files and even update the Arena working revision in just a few clicks. And in fact, the engineer does not even need to see or go to the Arena web interface to do this. This all happens from within inside the Altium Designer environment. So what I'd like to do next is walk through a live demonstration of the tools that provide this integration. The story we're going to start with here is that we just need to make a simple modification to an existing design. After I make that modification by choosing a part from my CAD library, I'm going to make an update to my schematic, and then I'm going to walk through the actual check-in process of getting all that information and checking it into Arena PLM such that the enterprise now has the latest design information. All right, so what I'd like to do now for everybody is walk you through a live demonstration of Altium Designer with EDAConnect. So the problem we're going to address here is making a simple change to my schematic, and the first thing we're going to do is actually locate a new component using a methodology that we've always done by just going to my existing library panel. So EDAConnect in the background has already synchronized my DBlib behind the scenes and populated with all the available part numbers from Arena and made them available in a traditional way. So I can come into here and simply go ahead and choose, in this case, my Arena DBlib for resistors. In this case, I'm using DBlib. The same process works for Altium Vault as well. So I would do all my traditional research for my component, locate the part I would like to use, and ultimately go ahead and place that component in my schematic. Now, as usual, I have to go ahead and modify my reference designator so that we can get this through. So we'll add another reference designator and make my additional schematic changes, do my wiring, do my rule checks, everything I would normally do, no change. Once I'm happy with my modifications to my schematic, I now need to get this communicated back to PLM to establish that closed loop collaboration. So how do I do this? I come up to the EDAConnect and do the check-in design. And at this point, EDAConnect will now make a connection with Arena PLM, and it will also be connected to Altium Designer. So at this point, it knows information, since we've launched it from within this particular project and design, about what is the current project, where's that project located, what's the current design we're on. It will even detect things such as, are there variants in this design, and other characteristics about what I've entered into Altium Designer. As an engineer, I simply click Next to move on to the next step of the wizard. At this point, we've connected again to Arena, and we've asked Arena for what is my product structure. So this product structure can be anything your company uses. In this case, we're set up with a very simple model of a PCBA, a schematic, and a PCB item underneath that. EDAConnect will automatically pull and create these part numbers on behalf of the engineer if they don't exist, or you can enter part numbers if you know them. This structure can be anything you like based on how your company organizes your product structure. Additionally, any attribution about these components can be brought in through the connection as well. So since we're connected to Arena PLM, we've actually interrogated Arena for these characteristics and brought in other information, such as the lifecycle phase. And you can add more characteristics here as you see fit, just for information as I make a decision. As mentioned before, we keep it as simple as possible with a simple wizard. I click Next, and now we're actually going to interrogate Altium Designer and ask Altium Designer for the current bill of materials structure. So it actually communicates through the Altium Designer APIs, pulls in the current bill of materials, or if there are variants, it figures out the variants. In this case, we only have one bill of materials, but if I had variant BOMs, I would just see multiple tabs, one for each variant BOM. And it would create the requisite part numbers for each of those as well. I can also ask the system to do a quick comparison against the working revision. So right now we're looking at the data that's in Altium Designer, but I can also compare it against the data that's sitting in Arena PLM for the current working revision, just to verify that the change that I made is exactly the change that I wanted to do. So here I can see that I've removed a part, I've added a part, and it's found another part and updated the quantity. So in this case, it's just saying, hey, you've got 2 of this particular part number, and it changed from just 1. So I can go back to my bill of materials view. I can do other operations here as well. I can insert new parts. I can determine not to upload these parts by checking this checkbox. We also can tell you if that part already exists in Arena by putting a little blue checkbox right next to it. As with the prior screen, we can add information interrogated from Altium Designer in the case of the part numbers, but also Arena PLM in terms of lifecycle phase, cost, and other characteristics you might want to display here as well. Clicking Next, I get to go into the files. So now we walk through and we actually determine which files do we need to release into Arena PLM. And your organization gets to choose exactly which data you wish to place into Arena PLM. We know where to grab it from, so we will pull it from those different locations. In this case, my schematic object has been created with an Arena part number, and I've determined the schematic design files that I'm going to extract from my Altium Designer environment and upload it. So in this case, pulling in the project, the schematic document, and a viewable. You'll notice I do the same on the PCB. In this case, we're just going to upload an assembly drawing. But I could also upload the actual native files. I could upload my manufacturing files. Whatever I choose can be placed into this wizard. And I can also add other files too, just by adding a generic data source to bring in files that I might just need for that one-time upload. Clicking Next, we'll now go through the actual process of actually publishing all this information into Arena PLM. So up to now, what we do in our philosophy is we always show the engineer exactly what we're collecting and where it's going to go into PLM, and then we actually complete the actual publish into PLM. With that, we're actually complete with the publish. What you'll notice is I never had to leave Altium Designer to actually accomplish that publish. This made it very straightforward for me to actually do this process multiple times and do it accurately each time by collecting the data for each area and placing it into Arena PLM. Okay, so let's review what we've learned through the prior slides and the quick demonstration. So as you recall, we wanted to establish a collaborative design environment. And one of the first things we needed to do was make sure that we always had an up-to-date Altium design library. So we illustrated that through the notion of Arena PLM and EDAConnect pushing information from Arena into the Altium Designer library, which can be either an Altium Designer DB lib or an Altium Designer Vault. What's interesting about this is there's no change to how the designer interacts to find parts. The way you locate parts today through DB lib or Vault is the way you would locate parts with the connector in place. This allows you to use the full power of your existing ECAD environment and not do this in a disruptive way. The library is automatically kept in sync, so there's no interaction by the engineer to do this. A Windows service actually runs in the background, checking for changes in Arena and updating that DB-lib or Altium Vault. So this keeps you in your familiar tools, and really there's nothing to worry about on a day-to-day basis as you're trying to work with your own design process. We have to address the other part of the process as well. Once I've made my update, how do I get this information from my Altium design and place that back into Arena? And how do I do this in a really timely, consistent way without any manual entry? So the goal here is to stay inside the CAD environment, map all that information into PLM on behalf of the engineer, and really keep the engineer from having to do any manual re-entry of that data. This allows us to actually quickly collaborate that information back to PLM. So what does this mean in terms of the value of this integration? Well, it can accelerate your time and time to market, because we're not going to be spending time taking engineers outside of the CAD environment and away from the process of innovating. We can reduce the time to find those correct components to place, because the Altium design library is always up to date with the most recent information from Arena. So we're not going to be placing parts that we can't procure, for example. On the flip side, pushing the information back up into Arena, we've eliminated errors because there is no manual entry. We simply go through a wizard that collects the information and maps it into the appropriate slots inside Arena PLM. This also increases our visibility. Not only does engineering get to see the most up-to-date information from PLM, but the enterprise gets early insight of that EDA bill of materials to drive the downstream processes in a much more effective way. And lastly, as we mentioned, we wanted to establish a closed loop process. So now we have a way to actually move information from Arena into the Altium Designer environment to make better decisions, then capture those better decisions by publishing it back into Arena without any manual reentry of that data. And most importantly, keep the engineer inside Altium Designer. So what we can see here is some increased benefits by leveraging your investment in your existing Arena PLM environment and providing this closed-loop change management process. I get early insight into the bill of materials, and I get to stay inside my design environment. So let's just follow up with what we've discussed here today. Let's recall that the end goal was successful whole products, and that whole product requires an effective collaboration. The status quo today is an over-the-wall manual process, and we need to address that. Engineers definitely need access to the enterprise data to make more effective solutions. So how do we do this? We enrich the CAD library with information from PLM. And lastly, the enterprise requires a state-of-the-EDA ECAD design to be placed back into PLM in a timely manner. So the benefits of this essentially are the closed-loop collaboration, better visibility with the enterprise, and increased accuracy overall. With that, I'd like to thank you for spending some time with us, and I'll turn this back over to Luca for some closing thoughts.
Thank you so much, Mark, for the fantastic overview and demonstration. And for all of our viewers, we do have Mark's contact information listed on this slide if you need to get in touch with him. And as always, please don't hesitate to contact your account executive or your favorite Arena Solutions consultant to learn more about this integration. Thank you so much for listening. Have a fantastic day.